What's up, Sleuth Army, and welcome to the start of the compilation of Florida videos for while the Sleuth Army is taking over here in Orlando, Florida. We are actually outside the garage of our villa, which is in the Davenport area, which I must say is a very nice area. It's a nice temperature at the moment. We've been here a couple of days already. We've done a couple of the parks. We just wanted some time to settle in and see the place again before we started shooting our footage. But don't worry, all the parks we've been to we are actually visiting again, so we'll be able to do some stuff for you there. But as you can see, we make our way past the lizards into the into the villa, and you're greeted by the entrance hallway. And when we pan round to the right, you can see the initial living room,
waiting room
area, and the dining table, which is a perfect place to relax and have a bite to eat. And then moving through, as it's all open plan, which is just perfect, it means that you can just walk around freely. We have the kitchen, which is very spacious, island in the middle, lots of cupboards, everything you'd need. The fridge and the freezer, high tech, perfect. A pantry. Alright. Pantry. And then we have the breakfast bar. And we have the breakfast bar and the second dining table. And obviously the hallway, which the front door is there. Then we do have our outside area, which we'll attempt to walk.
Oh, look at that. First time.
And heading out, you can see we have an outside dining table. We have a normal relaxation. Then we have the pool, the jacuzzi, and plenty of deck chairs to relax, as it is the perfect weather to be out on a night. And it's a nice area to chill, have a couple of drinks, and have a great time. Like you didn't run up the steps. And then moving back.
Our gremlin has moved on.
Our gremlin just moved on. And then we have what we've been using as the main living room. Got the TV, plenty of seating, which are extremely comfortable. And then heading up the grand staircase.
Careful, we have had a Sleuth Army member fall downstairs.
Just try and test out the sliding mechanism down the stairs. But as you can see, it is highly spacious. There's plenty of room downstairs. So, greeted immediately round the corner is the master room. As you can see, there is a huge bed, nice open space, nice closet that was doing strobe lighting when I tried to turn the light on earlier, so I'm glad that that's fixed. Nice walk-in closet, which is
Now, can we just
quite
talk about
luxury.
this bathroom?
Pinky's loving this.
I am very much loving this.
So, it's like a second jacuzzi, a huge bath.
Ridiculously large shower.
You could fit several people in there. And then in the toilet, you'll have our resident gremlin. Alright. Who just scared Pinky half to death, I think. Huge TV, very important.
That is a huge TV.
While you're lounging. And moving on down the corner, we hit the second of 5 bedrooms. Not as spacious, but definitely a nice one. Definitely cozy. Again, a smart TV, which is impressive. And they also have a walk-in closet.
I swear to God, if the gremlin is somehow in here, he is not.
So, heading across the way.
This is my wing.
Is the third and fourth bedroom, which you can see the balcony. You can see straight down to the front door. So no matter where someone is in the villa, downstairs, upstairs, you can always talk to each other.
It's my room.
Now is the double. Oh, it's the double. No, it's the double bed. Being tested by one of our members who has a gigantic hippo. And there's a rhinoceros. So moving to the next bathroom. We do have a couple of downstairs rooms to do that we will have to do on the way back because we forgot to do them. Is the next main bathroom.
Witness my alpaca towel.
There is an alpaca towel for Pinky. We have a sink, a bath, a shower, a nice closet full of towels. So again, definitely a nice one.
I've been conned with bath. It's not as good as
To be in.
master bath.
Then heading.
What's that? I
Locked.
can't remember.
Oh, it's storage. Heading through into the other bedroom. This is the fourth bedroom.
Oh, this is a fun bed.
You can see a very high up bed. That is very high. Another TV, nice set of drawers, and you have your closet on the other side and a little alpaca.
Clearly we're downstairs actually.
A little alpaca on the side there, with a view, with a pretty awesome view. As you can see, the closets, even the closets that are not necessarily walk-in, they are very spacious. So, you know, if you stay here 2 weeks or even longer, you could definitely have enough room for everything that you need. But heading back
Downstairs.
down the stairs,
We forgot the other bedroom.
and I have no idea where our gremlin is going to be.
I know.
But I figure he's probably somewhere because I think I saw him heading down the grand walkway. So heading down the staircase again, past the pool area, the lovely living room area. We head round the corner.
So we are heading into
We head round the corner
the
to
sleuth room currently.
one of the bedrooms. As you can see, very spacious and has a similar closet to the ones upstairs. My lovely towel with my police outline on it. The provided towels are in there, and the third bathroom, the last bathroom for the villa. As you can see, a normal bath and shower, not the jacuzzi and walk-in
Outrageous.
shower. Our laundromat room. Into our games room, which is of course the garage. Now it will be echoing here, just due to the nature of it. I missed his shot. Yeah, my cookies! I bought that! You haven't been loving them ones. I got 2 cookies out of that! But as you can see, a spacious villa and definitely a definitely a comfortable one for us all to be in. And we will be heading to more parks and more adventures in the future, but we wanted to open with this. Get off my cookies! It's $1 a cookie. So we will have more footage for you later, but we thought we'd introduce the villa first, as that seemed like the best place to start, as it is the current HQ of the Sleuth Army. So we'll see you guys in the transition. So we've seen the footage from the park we started and ended the holiday with, which was Universal Studios. There's actually some really good pictures in that footage of the globe, and the letters really stand out. So the main things that changed was the Jimmy Fallon ride had been added and the Fast and Furious ride had been added. We weren't bothered about the Jimmy Fallon ride really, and we were trying to squeeze a lot into our Universal days, but we did do the Fast and Furious ride, which I think the set of it is really cool. You're walking through the garage and you're kind of walking through the different films. So it starts with just cars, you know, and it's all about the races, and then it goes to like the vault from like Fast 5, and then there's more like bulletproof vests and guns and stuff from when it just goes a bit mental. But again, the ride felt very short. It felt like there was a lot of potential, but it was a lot of build up for not a lot of action. It is one where you're watching a screen and you're on like a party bus, and you are getting to see like Dom and Letty and all that, and it, you know, it is like Vin Diesel doing it, so there is that added bonus that it is the actual characters you're wanting to see.
Yes.
But it just feels over very, very quickly. Would be my only criticism of that. Now, they were doing a special parade, which was really cool. They had loads of floats and the big parade balloons, which it was the first time any of us had ever seen the big parade balloons. And they had all the DreamWorks characters. They had like King Julian dancing on his little parade, and all that kind of thing. And one thing I'll point out with that is the last is Santa's sleigh, and Santa stood on it, and as he was like, you know, saying Merry Christmas and stuff, he was actually signing it as well, which I thought was really good for, you know, any deaf or hearing impaired people that were watching it, or children or anything. Then it's going to help, you know, feel included for that. So I thought that was a nice little touch. They did have characters. They had like Bart and Doc from Back to the Future, and Patrick and things. You've seen my picture with Patrick, but they were all behind ropes. The only ones we saw freely wandering around were the Scooby-Doo characters, but they weren't really stopping to interact with people as much. Rip Ride Rocket, I didn't go on this time unfortunately because it had mental queues, and the single riders line was never open, which is odd because the last two times we'd gone, we always used single riders because only like half our party had ride it. So it was odd that was just never an option, but I'll definitely get on that next time. But in general, the rides do still hold up. So there's not a lot of new ones. They are working on some refurbishments at the minute with the Mummy and the Jurassic Park River Adventure. But like the E.T. ride and the Men in Black ride, it all still holds up really nicely. It doesn't look outdated. It doesn't look like you're watching something and think that looks really bad quality. So that's always a positive for Universal, and I would definitely say it's still one of the better parks. And there you've seen a short little bit of footage of some of the stuff at Volcano Bay. Obviously, with it being a water park, by nature it was difficult to get any footage. We couldn't be having our phones on us when we're going in the wave pool and things, so that's why there's little of footage for that. But it is always a chill day. I would say you want to put that between two park days, because you're not going to have to be doing as much. You can, you know, lay in the sun, go in the pools and things. Winter is definitely obviously it's the off season for the water parks, so I would say that it is noticeably colder. It's not too cold to go for the swims, but like if you arrive at park open when the sun hasn't been on the wave pools for a lot of the day, it's definitely, you're going to be hunting the warm spots and the warm jets. But the food was super tasty. The fries were good, the chicken tenders were good, and the milkshakes were nice, so what more can you ask for? The lazy river, they have 2 lazy rivers. The Karma one we went in more, and that was really good. We had a whiz round the quicker one, but Pinky's hair had been dyed recently, so we didn't want it leaking like down her face, so we spent a little bit less time in the more extreme stuff. And the raft rides that we did go on were really good, and they look a bit mental from the top. There's like a big dish and you're like, if I end up at the top of that, I'm falling out of this raft, but luckily none of us did this time. So the queue times are made better by, you get a tapu that's just like a watch, and you tap it to the queue and it'll tell you come back in 20 minutes or whatever, which it's a little bit awkward if it says 10 minutes, because you can't really wander off and do anything in 10 minutes. You'd be wandering off to wander straight back. But if it had like an hour, then you'd just go in the lazy river or something. However, they wanted you to use that to pay for like drinks, food, but we could not link any payment method to it. We tried PayPal, we tried debit cards and credit cards, and I guess because they're British credit cards and things, it just wouldn't let it happen. So if you're an international tourist, you may have a little bit of trouble with that. So we just had to go back to the lockers and get our normal cash and things to pay for it, which isn't a big deal, but it is just that little bit annoying. It would have been easier if it had worked, but maybe they'll work on that and refine the technology a little bit. But I would say Volcano Bay is definitely one of the better water parks that is in Orlando. So you've just seen the footage we got from Magic Kingdom. Now, I think we always have a bit of a bone to pick with Magic Kingdom. It's seen as like the poster park for Disney. When people think of Disney parks, they often think of Magic Kingdom because it's got the castle and it's got the characters you would closely associate with Disney. However, I think the whole group would put it as their least favourite Disney park, if you're not including the water parks, because it is too busy. Every time we've been, be it in summer or when we went in winter, it's just too busy to get everything done that you would maybe want to get done. all the rides like Jungle Cruise and Pirates and Splash Mountain always had like 2.5 hour queues, which just isn't feasible if you've got people who haven't been before that wanting to see the whole park. You can't stand in a queue for 2.5 hours at every ride. So we definitely didn't get to go on as many rides as we would have hoped. We did go through one of the treehouse walks where you go up into the trees and you're looking at different rooms and things, and that was really cool. We didn't do that last time we came. But we did have a bit of an issue with getting food, because a lot of Disney parks, to avoid contact, are doing mobile ordering. However, it creates a little bit, like there was a big group of us, there was 6 of us, so it creates a bit of an issue of going, right, well, you have to pay by card. So it's going, right, well, you can't order all separately and then risk, 2 of you get your food now and 1 of you gets it now. So if you are a tourist and you're someone that likes to take cash, so you convert your money and you'd like to take cash so you know exactly what you've got, it definitely made it a little bit trickier. But this was only an issue in this park really that we found. However, this was also the most Christmassy park. It was the most decorated park that we noticed, and the castle was done up for the 50th anniversary because all those celebrations were going on. And there were no direct meet and greets in any of the parks because of the COVID restrictions. However, they were still doing the floats and, you know, all that kind of thing, so you did still get to see the characters even if you couldn't interact with them in the same way. But overall, I would give best ride to, of the ones we went on this time, I would give it to Pirates. I think the animatronics still hold really well. They're definitely not the best, but they hold well enough that you can watch the movements and still be like, oh, you know, this is feasible. And of course it does have Jack with the likeness of Johnny Depp, which is definitely a bonus. But all in all, I would say that Magic Kingdom is one to do, but probably not one I'd go to multiple times if it was a 2-week holiday like the one we've just come back from. But it's worth doing if you haven't seen it before, I would say. And you've just seen a little bit of footage we got from Celebration. I say we got, I didn't go. I didn't go, Violet didn't go, Pinky didn't go. It was just TJ and Storm that went. But Celebration is a Disney-owned residential village. So it looks very clean, it looks very picturesque, because it is designed in that with that Disney feel, but for people to live in. But obviously because it's Disney, it attracts a lot of tourism as well. And in the winter they do a nice snow show where they like spray snow in from the roofs, and they do a lot of winter activities, so like ice skating. And you saw in our footage that poor person that was already on the deck got up and went straight back down, so that's unfortunate for them. But it is worth noting that TJ did say that you probably couldn't spend a whole day there. It's not quite big enough to fill a whole day. So if you're going for a half day or something like that, or it's quite close to you where you're staying, it's definitely worth checking it out, and then you can say you've been to that Disney village. And there you've seen the footage we got from Islands of Adventure, with one of my favourite intros of the Grinch having a bit of a boogie. And he was definitely a big part of their Christmas celebrations, which is understandable. Now, we'll start with the Dr. Seuss land. There was a Grinch show, but its queues were kind of crazy. You'd have to be there like an hour and a half early. But there were a lot of characters in the same area. You saw the footage of the Lorax and the Cat in the Hat and Thing 1 and Thing 2. They often had the people from Whoville or the Grinch or the Cat in the Hat and or you know, a whole host of Dr. Seuss characters, which was really good to see because it added that extra element as you're walking around. You know, you can go, oh, look, that, you know, there's the characters that we're seeing on all these rides and things. So that was really good to see. You can meet the Grinch as well. If you want to queue for that, that is an option. And I would say if you've got people that really do love the Grinch, then it is probably worth doing. There is the Jurassic Park River ride had been changed to more of a Jurassic World theming since we'd last been there. So we went on that. The guy warned us we'd get soaked. I barely got wet. That was not the case for when we went on the bilge wrap barges. We were all drenched on quite a cold day, so that was fun. The big coasters, obviously Hulk is still there, still standing strong. Pinky and I went on that, the others were not fancying it. But my advice would be, if you're in a situation like that where there's like 2 of you, maybe 3 of you at a push, but if there's 2 or less of you obviously going on, then just do the single ride as if it's open. We avoided a 90-minute queue and just walked straight on, and we were on straight away. And it is definitely worth doing, because you're going to be apart for like 45 seconds or a minute while it's going round, and on a coaster like Hulk you can't really talk to the person next to you anyway, so it doesn't matter too much what's going on. And then the other big coaster that's now there is the Velocicoaster in the Jurassic Park area, and it is a pretty insane coaster. Of the 6 of us, only 2 of us rode that, and the one who rode it with me, Big Papa was like, I'm going to ride it with him, and everyone was like, you're going to what? Never been on upside down coasters or anything before, and he already knew this was like, there was a solid like 2-3 seconds of hang time as well as all the loops, so I was like, fair enough, let's do it. Did single riders again, got straight on, and we sat down. We actually got lucky enough to be sat next to each other, which was awesome. But we sat down, and this lap bar came down, and I'm thinking, hold up, wait a minute, right, where's my over shoulder? But that doesn't, it just uses the lap bar. I mean, it is, your seat is quite boxed in, so you're not going to fling randomly like I was thinking, what if I just lose an arm? But you are quite tightly sat in your seat. And thinking about it now, I think the reason they don't do the over shoulder is for the hang time bit, so that your arms can naturally fall up, so that you feel more like you are hanging, as opposed to being very rigidly sat in your seat. But that is definitely one to do, and its queue time is never too crazy, to say it's the newest ride there, so definitely get on that and give that a go. But the standout thing for the Marvel area is that there are no characters to take pictures with, really. Last time we went, they were all along the street. You could find like Wolverine, Rogue, Iceman, all that kind of thing, whereas because of COVID that's not currently happening. So if that was a really big thing you were looking forward to, I would say wait to go until that's becoming a bit more regular again. I do believe that Disney made an announcement recently, within the last couple of days, that they're bringing back in-person meet and greets, that they are starting them again at the start of February, I think they said. So it's definitely starting to pick up and get back to where it was, which is really good for anyone that's going this year. But all in all, I think Islands is always seen as like the little brother to Studios, but for the thrill seekers there is more for you at Islands in terms of pure rides. So I would say you're probably going to enjoy that one a little bit more than Studios if your aim is to get on the rides. And now we've seen the footage from one of the best parks, which is Epcot. Definitely a park that is underrated by a lot of people. When people are voting on their favourite parks, Epcot usually winds up near the bottom, surprisingly. However, Disney are trying to work to change that. I think there was a lot of talk of brightening up the park, and I believe they've just started a festival of celebrations where a lot more flowers are being brought in and planted, ready for the spring and things like that. And of course, they are still working on building the Guardians of the Galaxy ride. They've actually just finished building the building and they're painting it now. It was meant to be open in time for the 50th celebration starting, which was last October. So it was meant to be open by the time we went, but unfortunately it was delayed. So that was a shame. We would definitely look forward to doing that this time, but we'll just have to get on that next time. Now, there is plenty of rides to do. There's the land area, there's the Spaceship Earth, there's Mission Space, there is Test Track, but Test Track was shut for the majority of the time of the day we were there. I think they were having some issues with it. And then, of course, round the edge, there's the World Showcase, which really does split the feel. It almost feels like two parks. Like, you've got this lovely walk around area that's quite a chill, scenic walk around, and there's loads of shops to look in the different areas and loads of buildings to see. And then you've got the sort of ride section of the park. And you've seen we got a lot of footage from the World Showcase. We had a lot of fun with that. And we did see the nighttime show, which I think was called Harmony. And it was a load of Disney tracks and everything. We were stood on a wall having a sing-along and a dance to the tracks as they were playing. So that was really fun. And we were dying to get back on Soarin', which I think is a lot of people's favourite rides in the Sleuth Army. And they've actually added a new addition called the Disney Play app. And you can download that, and when you're stood in the queue for certain rides, it gives you something to do. It gives you a game to play on your phone, and the one for Soarin' is actually a trivia quiz. And you pick a colour team, so like we were Team Purple, and you get questions and you answer up, and they have big screens along the walls as you're queuing that show the question and then show your scores and like which team's winning. And although it's not a long queue, we only queued about half an hour, it keeps you all engaged while you're queuing. Like, arguably the queues in Epcot are quite bland, because that's one of the things people say, that Epcot doesn't have the kind of Disney look to it. But adding that little element of being able to have something interactive to do, it definitely was a bonus to an already great ride. But my favourite ride from Epcot this time was Living with the Land, which I think a lot of people would maybe miss because they'd read the description and be like, why do I want to go on a little boat through a greenhouse? But you've got a nice little bit of, you go through sets with like animatronics of the timeline of like horticulture, and then you enter their greenhouses and see all the things they're growing, and everything's labelled so that you can see what you're looking at. And they've got different herbs and trees and different types of grass and all that kind of thing. And then you come to like their fruit, and they're growing like the peppers and all that kind of thing, banana trees. But I think it's cool to see it all growing and see what Disney's actually doing to help. But then it also can like teach you things if you're not that well versed in like horticulture. So they had a lot of examples of suspended growth, where they'd actually got it so that the vines for the like pumpkins and things were growing up and then across a mesh covering, so that the fruit would hang when it grew, and it helps protect the fruit from like pests and things like that. So I think that was definitely really cool to do, and giving examples of how they're helping, how they're putting forward ideas that can make a difference. So I think it's definitely one that people would overlook, but it is one that everyone should give a go. Now, I will say that Epcot tends to be a lot less busy. Like, we've covered how busy Magic Kingdom is, but but Epcot is definitely chill. Even with it having such good rides and things there, you're not going to be having to rush around. You're going to be able to take your time and take a leisurely look through everything. And a lot of the shops in it, like they have the big creation shop, which has everything you'd want really. There's a lot of fashion in there, and things like that, but then there's also a lot of stuff from like Up. You can find different things, you know, your key rings, books, things like that. Or they've got some Star Wars stuff, so you're going to find something for everyone with a nice little takeaway. And I know in a video we covered that was like top 10 thing to do at Epcot, popcorn was like up there. It was like, she gave it like number 3 or something. No. Give it a miss. Walking past the popcorn thing nearly made me vom. It just was not appealing to me. But Epcot, definitely one to give a couple of days to, I would say. Split it, do the rides one day, do the World Showcase the other, so that you really give it the time it deserves. So that you're not overlooking it like many people do. And now you've seen footage from my favourite park. It wasn't my favourite before, but it definitely is now. And it is Hollywood Studios. Now this is the park where the most has changed between us going last time and this time. So the first big area that changed was Toy Story Land. That was freshly built and has some really good rides in it. And just the detail and the effort of really looking into, well, what are the toys that people are going to go, I recognise that, I remember having that. Even down to like the railings are not just, you know, usual metal railings. They're all themed around different toys, like Connect pieces and all that kind of thing. And I mean the big ride, well, the main draw ride in there is Slinky Dog Dash, which you've actually seen some of the pictures that it takes on the ride, where Pinky looks very, very pleased that she's on this ride. She looks very overly happy, which is, you know, to each their own, I guess. She was having a different experience to the rest of us. We were all loving it, but she was like, this is heaven. But it is a really good ride. And the queue is obviously themed around Slinky Dog, but there's a lot to look at while you're queuing. So again, you're in a good spot with that. And the next ride we did, because there was like just some spinning saucer teacup things themed after the aliens. But the next ride we did was called Toy Story Mania. And it's like one of the shooter type rides where you're competing with people, but it's uniquely done in that you go from like screen to screen, and it's like carnival games is each one, and it's like a cumulative score. So that was really cool. And again, there was one of these Disney Play Park app games that you could play in that queue, where you had to do like these whole things. You were earning scores, earning stars, and collecting information. And then there is a bit where it's like, when you see this and it shows you a picture of what you're looking out for, press this button, and when you do that, something actually happens in front of you in the actual queue. Like the app triggers something to happen, which I thought was really cool. Like, if you're queuing for an hour and a half, it's going to make it so much more bearable. Like, I don't mind queuing anyway. If you're vibing with people, I don't mind queuing. But just those little things, I was thinking, well, what can we do to make this better? Especially if you had children, I think having them do this would help them in that queue and to get through the queue. One of the next rides that was new was Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which we weren't too sure what we were really getting on going through it. Our queue wasn't very long, we were on it very quickly, but it is very cleanly done. Like the way they take it being like you've been pulled into a 2D classic Mickey cartoon but made it 3D is incredible. Particularly like the water fountains and things stood out to me. But that also utilises their new type of cart that isn't on a track. It's like a free roaming cart, which I think they were really using this ride to show it off, because there's one particular bit where you go in and Daffy Duck is teaching you to dance, and she's getting you to do different types of dance, so, you know, like a waltz and a salsa and stuff, and it just wouldn't be possible on a track. But this like almost like remote controlled cart you're in has so much smoother movement and better movement, and it allows for a more unique experience, which is better used in a ride we'll cover in a little bit. But Launch Bay, the Star Wars Museum, unfortunately was not open, neither was the Disney Junior store, and they didn't have the parade of stormtroopers and things. Now, the only thing I think is that it is still restrictions with COVID. If they couldn't have someone constantly going around cleaning the museum glass of all the stuff from people touching it in the Star Wars area. But that is a shame, because that is a really cool thing to walk around, particularly for the Star Wars fans, and the shop that was at the end of it was one of the best. But the other new area is, of course, Galaxy's Edge, which really sold the park for me. You go through a tunnel, on one end and round several corners when you're coming out the other end. So you're completely cut off again, so you're completely immersed. And the first thing you see when you go through the tunnel on the left is the queue for Rise of Resistance. And then you're going through and you get to the Black Spire Market, and there's like an apothecary and it's selling like bantha, animatronics and all that kind of thing. And they've integrated, it looks like you're in a marketplace that you'd see on something like Tatooine. And then they've got a canteen and things. And they did have characters, so like Chewbacca and Rey were walking around, and they have speakers everywhere for the ambient noise. But like when you get closer to the starport, then it sounds like ships are taking off, but the sound will start right next to the starport, like engines firing up, and then it'll travel through the whole of Galaxy's Edge, so it makes you look up as if you're going to actually see a starship taking off, which I thought was really cool. And then you round the corner and you've got like Kylo Ren's shuttle, and you go up some stairs and round another corner and you're faced with a to scale Millennium Falcon. And you know, Chewie might be wandering around at the bottom, they have him going around, they have Rey going around, and then that, you go all around the back of that for Smuggler's Run. Now, of the two, Rise of Resistance was the one that everyone was saying was groundbreaking, but we rode Smuggler's Run first. And the speakers are cool. You've got people coming over the comms that are like rebel officers or things like that, and you go through like a droid workshop, and then just before you get on your ride, you're stood, and there's an animatronic of Hondo, who's like your commander, stood on a balcony above you. And I was looking at him, and he's like facing the computer, and he turns around and walks to the front of the balcony, he's talking to you and he's moving around. I think you saw a little clip in the footage, but it really had me questioning if it was an animatronic or if it was a person, like if they had a live actor up there. And it is an animatronic, but the advances from the last time we went and the things we saw to this time in terms of robotics is incredible. Like, to even get you to question, am I looking at a robot or am I looking at a real person, just speaks volumes to how good they look. And then you go onto the Millennium Falcon itself, and you're in the main body of it, and you can see the holochess table where Chewie plays against Luke. You know, you can see the cargo hold and everything. And then you get put into your group, so like it's 6 per cabin, and we were a group of 6, so it was perfect. And you've got 2 pilots, 2 gunners, 2 engineers, and then you go into the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, and you're seeing out of the front window and the screens behind it, and there's all stuff to your side. So if you're an engineer, you've got a screen to your side with a diagram of the Falcon showing you where the damage is, and you have to, if it gets damaged because the pilots crash, you have to fix it. Buttons will light up, but it's not like Mission Space in Epcot where every time you ride it you'll be pressing the same 2 buttons. Different buttons will be lighting up all over the place, and you've got to really get your timing right as a gunner, as an engineer, as a pilot, and you get rated at the end. So we actually got Master Pirates, we got the highest rank possible on our first attempt. But the effort they put to immerse you in that and really give you the feel of you flying the Falcon. I mean, I did 2 roles in total. I did the engineer and I did the pilot, and they were both felt so different, but were both incredible, that it was definitely a standout ride. But the real one that stole the show was Rise of the Resistance. Now, if you are going, you're going to look at the queue time, and it's going to be at least 2 hours, and you're going to probably think, do we bother? And I would say you're making a big mistake if you don't ride it before you leave, because, you know, the queue's fine. You start outside, you go inside, whatever, and then you walk into a room and you saw a little bit of the footage, and a droid of BB-8 comes out, is talking to you. Then there's a Jedi hologram which looks exactly like it does in the movies, and then you walk out and there's Poe's X-Wing and you get on a shuttle. Fair enough. And I was thinking, it's going to be a simulation ride, you know, there's going to be screens in the shuttle, you know, when you're walking and you're stood and you're hearing the sounds of it taking off, it's moving a little bit, it's shaking, and you seeing the screens and they're saying, oh, bit of a problem, there's a Star Destroyer in our way. Thinking, right, that's not good. And then they go, oh, it's got us in its tractor beam and we're being pulled in. And then the doors open and you are somewhere completely different. You're now indoors on a Star Destroyer. And there's a live actor of a Imperial officer coming onto it and saying, right, we're getting you to the cells. And you step out of your little shuttle and there is just rows and rows of stormtroopers stood in front of you. There's about 50 stormtroopers and you're in the port of a Star Destroyer and there's like TIE fighters on the wall. And then the blend of things, so you've started in a simulation, then you're doing a bit of live action walkthrough as it leads you to the cells. And then you get in one of the new carts where it's not on a track and it's driven by a droid and you're going around, and the use of like scenery as you're going through the halls of this Star Destroyer feels like you are on a Star Destroyer. It doesn't feel like you're just on a ride in a park. And then they use a blend of Pepper's Ghost, of animatronics, of live actors, of statues to do like Kylo Ren and things like that. But there are so many techniques, like there's a particular bit where blaster shots are being fired and it's blowing chunks of the wall out and the roof, and I still have no idea how they even do that, because the roof is fine before you go in. Like in the Muppets, they do something similar in the Muppets 3D, but it's a curtain that lifts and it's a projection of a fine wall, and then a thin curtain lifts and there's the damaged wall, but it's nothing like that in Rise of the Resistance. And even just the scale of coming out and you're at the feet of an AT-AT and you go on a lift and you're lifted up to eye level with an AT-AT, that for a Star Wars fan is going to be incredible to do. And then being dropped out of the Star Destroyer when you're in an escape pod and your whole car actually drops slightly to give you that feeling. It's definitely something that has to be done, and I can say, and I think a lot of the Sleuth Army have never been on a ride like that. I've never experienced any ride like that, even in the other Disney parks or the Universal parks. But I think the other thing for Galaxy's Edge is the Build-A-Droid. You go to a droid workshop, you can build an R2 or a BB-8, and it's like a remote control. That's awesome. But the disappointing thing was the Build-A-Sabers. Now, you used to do it at Star Tours, and it'd be about $60 for a single saber, looking at about $100 for a double-ended saber. Because I built a purple-bladed single saber, and Antinora from the stream built a double-ended Kylo Ren saber, and they paid like $115 or something with tax. Now you build them at Savvy's workshop, which is just a little outside bench, and the minimum price you're going to pay after tax is like $250 for a single bladed saber. Now, obviously they're going, as Pinky said, they've spent a lot of money to build Galaxy's Edge, so they're going to charge a lot of money for the stuff you get in it. But the blade doesn't retract, so obviously it's a better looking blade when it's lit up, but it's a bit clunky to carry around and things, and you do get a carry case, which is really cool, but I just think it is extremely pricey compared to what it used to be for good quality sabers as well. And that's really your only option. They have some legacy sabers like replicas of Count Dooku's, but again they're like $170. So one of the main things that people are going to want to buy, it's not really in a lot of people's price range, I wouldn't say. But what is in a lot of people's price range is the bubble ones that you can buy. That may look similar. Well, you wouldn't be able to get this one actually. This will be a rare commodity now because it's a special Christmas one, and the bubbles are designed to look like they're
This way, towards me.
they're snow.
You have to give it time to let it warm up. My god, it's not warm up.
Might be out of bubble juices.
It's not.
But look, it lights up, which is really cool, especially at
I'm
night.
get the bubbles working.
And it does spray a lot of bubbles. So we were wandering around just chasing bubbles,
It sounds like a Hoover, but it's not.
which was a lot of fun. And as you can see, because of the lights, you do get a nice little
Oh, it's still going. Well,
stream. of bubbles. You saw the bubbles. And Pinky was eyeing up those for quite a while before she finally got one. But you definitely have to ride both rides in Galaxy's Edge, I would say, and the Toy Story ones are well worth doing as well. And of course there's the Hollywood Tower of Terror, there's the Aerosmith Rock and Roller Coaster, the Mickey and Minnie's, so there is a lot to do. So you probably want to dedicate a couple of days for that. And there you've seen some pretty great shots of the Harry Potter areas. There's a bubble. That were, of course, within Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios. Now, we actually dedicated a whole, well, almost a full day to just the Harry Potter sections, so that was really cool. And not a lot has changed in Diagon Alley. Obviously, there's no new rides there. A lot of the shops, obviously, are going to be the same shop because it's Diagon Alley. But what I will say is they've integrated a lot of Fantastic Beasts merch, particularly in Ollivanders. A lot of the main characters in Fantastic Beasts, you can now get their wands, which does mean that some of the original Harry Potter characters, their wands aren't always available. Like, I was looking for Kingsley Shacklebolt, but they weren't stocking it. But, you know, that's always going to happen. There's still the cool experience of going down to Nocturne Alley and going into Borgin and Burke's there, and they've got a lot of collectible stuff in there. The bigger changes between this time and last time were in Hogsmeade. We took the Hogwarts Express over to Hogsmeade. The dragons, of course, the dragon challenges are gone. They were 2 roller coasters where you were under the track, and the Hippogriff replaced them. It was there last time, but it was always at like a 3.5 hour queue, and we found it this time at about 40-minute queue. We queued for about 25 minutes in the end. and I would say that it's good, but it is very short. You're going to get like a 30-second ride, and you could be queuing a long time. It definitely aimed more at kids, I would say. There is, after you've done the climb, or while you're doing the climb, there is a brilliant shot of the park, because the car and the track is quite minimal. So, you know, you can look over and see straight down, you're not seeing a big clunky car. You can see the castle really well, because you're so high up, and you can see out into the main body of Islands of Adventure. But I would say that if it was more than a 40-minute queue, I probably wouldn't have been too pleased coming off it. But on the other hand was Hagrid's Magical Motorbikes, which I didn't really know too much about. The queue brings you through Hogwarts grounds and then through some tunnels, and then you get on the bikes, and they use quite unique technology, and there's like speed boosts that you hit as you're going round, and it gives you a propellant, so you go really quite quick. So you just sat holding onto a bike with a little belt, and there's a lot of, you see Fluffy, you see Hagrid, you see a lot of creatures, you see unicorns and hippogriffs and all that kind of thing. You do go backwards at one point and do some drops and things, but it was so much longer than the hippogriff ride, and it felt like you were getting so much out of it that it was definitely worth the bit of a longer queue. And it is sometimes like a 3-4 hour queue, which is crazy, but it is a really good ride, and it's definitely my highlight of the Harry Potter ride. And the areas were really busy. We did go on Christmas Day when we went to the Harry Potter area, but it was very busy, and we often saw queues to get in, particularly from the islands end. So just be wary of that if you are heading to the Harry Potter places, that it might be better to dedicate a whole day to it rather than try and fit it in with your islands or studios days. So that was the footage that we'd captured from Animal Kingdom. You saw a good example of a lot of the park there. You saw the Tree of Life, you saw the Rainforest Cafe, which is where we chose to have our meals, which it was super tasty, and you saw a lot of footage from the safaris, which we'll come to later, and some of the general walk around stuff from the park, and of course you saw the floating islands and the robot suits and things like that from Pandora, which was the big new thing about Animal Kingdom, which wasn't there last time we went. We knew it was being built, but obviously it was completed between our last trip and the trip we've just come back from, and it is definitely highly impressive to think of the amount of work that goes into constructing those floating islands. And they are so much like the movie, like they're connected by vines and things, which obviously will be like metal beams to keep them up there, but the thought that goes into every little design, even down to like what flowers are we going to plant here, what shrubs do we want to really keep you in the feel. And they've done what they like to do in like the Harry Potter area for Universal, where it's tucked away. It's got its own little section within Animal Kingdom, so that you are just in Pandora and you're walking around, and it is really nice to walk around during the day, but I would say it gets even better once it gets dark, because a lot of it is like bioluminescent, so they've like sprayed the ground so that it glows under UV light, and all the lights that are shining have a normal light and a UV light, so that's really cool to do. And it does include 2 rides. It has the Navi River ride, which I would put as my top ride for Animal Kingdom. It's a more chill one. The queue's really cool. You're queuing through Navi huts, and then you get on the boat and you're going through the different worlds, and they use a mix of screens and like actual animatronics and things, and you come out to the end and there's a Navi sat singing and dancing, and it is a really high quality animatronic. It's super smooth and it fits really well. And the other ride which we didn't go on was Flight of the Banshee, because it had like a 3.5 hour wait all the time, which when you're going in winter and the park shuts early, and all the animal stuff shuts before 5 o'clock, you really can't, if you want to be doing that, you really can't afford to be stood in a 3.5 hour queue. It's just not feasible, especially if you haven't got many days there planned for your holiday. I would say the only thing that's missing from Pandora for me that really stood out was the lack of statues of animals or the Navi or the Banshees. And I think one particular thing is when you're entering, it says like, welcome to the planet of Pandora. One of the things on the sign, it says like, do not feed the wildlife, it is extremely dangerous. But then there's nothing there. So I think that would, hearing the sounds and seeing the creatures would definitely add that missing element to Pandora. But without that, it's still an amazing place to go, and it is a worthy addition to what I would consider as one of the best parks anyway. But the highlight for me, as always, would be the Kilimanjaro safaris. I would say if you go there and you don't do them a couple of times, you are definitely making a mistake, because you're going to go on a like 25-minute safari and you're going to see so much that you wouldn't have an opportunity to see anywhere else. And you're going to see it on them in their natural habitat, on the wide reserves. Like Animal Kingdom has huge reserves that they're all on, which is why every safari is different, because not all the animals are going to be near the tracks that they take. I mean, when both parts of our group went on the safari, we all got really lucky with the giraffes. They were always coming super close to the jeeps and walking just past them, all laying next to the road and things like that, so that's always nice to see. But the highlight for me was seeing the African wild dogs, because they're usually quite tricky to see. They're usually in the back of their cave, but they were out and playing and running around, because I think it wasn't too warm for them, but you know, it was just the right point in the day. But the shout out, and you'll have seen it in the footage, has to be the lions. we got super lucky with our shots of them laid on the pride, and particularly the shot of the head male lion yawning as he's sort of coming round from his nap, and like the lionesses laid around him. That was definitely a cool moment to see, because I think lions are one of those creatures that everyone wants to see. You know, it's like an elephant. Everyone wants to see an elephant. You know, you want to get a good shot of the lions, but it is definitely one of the better parks, in my opinion, one of the better Disney parks. But I would recommend it in autumn at the latest, because you'll just get more time to do the safaris, particularly when we went in summer. Although the heat is mental, we did have days where you could do like 2 or 3 safaris. You could do early morning, sort of mid-afternoon and night time, and you're going to get something different every time. But we all enjoyed Animal Kingdom, and I think we all would enjoy spending a little more time there next time we go to Florida.